Hi, my name is Dale Smith, and I'm continuing with more classes on the end times and times of it's coming up in the future. This is my book I wrote. It's 316 pages. It's called The Kingdoms of This World. It's a verse-to-verse study in the prophecies of Daniel and Revelation. And that's what these classes are that I have. We've talked about different things, but we're going to talk about the 7 years of tribulation, and I'll give you a scripture about that, and it's found in the 9th chapter of Daniel, the last verse, verse 27. And it says, "And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week." Confirm the covenant, that's the baptismal covenant, with many for 1 week, and that's 7 years. And in the midst of the week shall he cause the sacrifice, the oblation to cease, and for the overspreading of abomination he shall make it desolate, even until the consummation and that determined it shall be poured out upon the desolate. So this period of time is coming real soon. Now, 7 years is a period of time before Jesus returns to the earth. Now, the 7 years will be Satan's time, where he knows that after the 7 years are over and Jesus returns, that he will be bound for 1,000 years. So this 7 years, Satan is going to be working overtime and try to get as many people as he can to go with him instead of going with God and Jesus. So that's our purpose here, is to show you the dates and times and things that are coming up, so we can make sure we make the right decisions to remain with God and Jesus. This is kind of a picture here of the kingdom of heaven. I got this a while back. It's kind of neat. I just thought I'd share it. Here's the kingdom of heaven up here in the clouds. The scriptures talk about clouds. And so I just want to share that with you. So we talked about, in the past, 2 end times. The time of the end and the end of time. Now the time of the end is the 7 years of tribulation before Jesus returns. The end of time is the 334 years of the little season that will take place after, when Satan is loose for 334 years, for a little season. A season is 1,000 years. A little season is 1/3 of 1,000 years, 334 years. Now that's found in Daniel chapter 12, verse 12. And in verse 13, the last verse of Daniel says, "But go thy way till the end be." So this is the end of time, this 334 years. 335 is the eternal judgment time, where the final judgment is made, and that's found in Daniel also. Now, this chart here, I have about 12. This is on the 7 years of tribulation. And this is a different stuff that's going to be taking place during the 2,520 days, or 7 years of great tribulation. It's 1 week. It's called Jacob's trouble as well. Now, during this period of time, there will be 2 witnesses that will prophesy for 1,260 days. That's 3.5 years. But they're going to be slain in the streets of Jerusalem. Now, when they're slain, those who killed them will rejoice and have a good time, and they're glad that they're gone and everything. But their bodies are going to lay in the streets for 3 days. And at the end of the 3 days, their bodies will be resurrected. And those who had killed them are going to be in real deep trouble. So that's part of what's coming up during the 7 years of tribulation. The 12 tribes of Israel, 144,000 servants with the mark of God in their head, their foreheads. And they'll have white robes and have come through the great tribulation. The great tribulation is coming during the 7 years, probably near the end of it. Blow ye a trumpet in Zion, sound an alarm in my holy mountain. Sanctify fast. So those who labor in Zion shall labor for Zion. If they labor for money, they shall perish. No money in Zion. It's all volunteer help. Everything's volunteer. Multitudes in the valley of decisions. We've got to make a decision before Jesus comes so that we can be with him. For the day of the Lord is near. So this is all coming in the very near future. The day of the Lord is coming. Gather all nations against Jerusalem to battle. Sun shall be darkened, the moon shall moon into blood before the great and terrible day of the Lord come. Whosoever shall call on the name of the Lord shall be delivered in Mount Zion and in Jerusalem. Zion will be established during the 6 years. Mount Zion, when the saints will have protection, will be in the 7th year. That's when Mount Zion will be established. And they'll be protected from the enemies of the world during that time. He that labors in Zion shall labor for Zion. If they labor for money, they shall perish. No money in Zion. Okay. The mark of the beast. Very, very important. That is going to take place. We do not take the mark of the beast. It's very important. You will not be with God if you do. That has to do with the numbering system, the 666. It has to do with the monetary system. It has to do with the money. That's why in Zion there'll be no money, because then that way we won't have to worry about taking the mark of the beast, because we're going to be voluntarily working in Zion to build Zion. Zion is the kingdom of our God. It's the number of a man, and his number is 666. If any man worship the beast and his image and receive this mark, shall drink the wrath of God and have be tormented in the presence of the angels. Now, you've heard of a roulette wheel. Did you ever add the numbers of a roulette wheel? They come to 666. The 10 virgins will take place. Now, 5 will be wise and 5 will be foolish. The 5 wise will go into the marriage supper of the Lamb. That's just before the Lord returns. They'll be able to, because they kept God's commandments and laws. Now, there's 5 foolish who did not keep the laws of God. They had just the same amount of time as the 5 virgins that were righteous, the wise ones, but they didn't. They just squandered their time, and they weren't ready, and they weren't made purified, made white, or tried. But the wise shall understand. Now, they had to go sell and buy and go back into the world. I don't know if they had to take the mark of the beast, because the mark of the beast will be taking place at this particular time during this during the 7 years of tribulation. So this is very important. Okay, so there's 2,520 days, and we'll confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. Confirm the covenant. The covenant is the baptismal covenant. It's important that one to be baptized during those 7 years, so they'll be with the Lord. And in the midst of the week shall they cause the sacrifice, the oblation to cease, and for the overspreading of abomination he shall make it desolate, even until the consummation, and in that determined shall be poured out upon the desolate. That's in Daniel 9:27. Okay. Then it says here in Daniel chapter 8, verse 13 and 14, about the 2,300 days. Now remember, there's 2,520 days for 7 years. 2,300 days is during the 6th year, near the end of the 7 years. And it says, how long shall be the vision concerning the daily sacrifice and the transgression of desolation? to give both the sanctuary is the church, and the host, that would be God's people, to be trodden underfoot. Now this is possible. To 2,300 days, then shall the sanctuary, the church, be cleansed. So there's a period of time that God's church will have to be cleansed. It'll be during this 2,300 days of it, in the 6th year, the church will be cleansed. And I believe that after that is when we'll be in Mount Zion, and that the saints will be protected from the world. Now, just like Daniel and his 3 companions. Daniel was in the lion's den. The lions didn't hurt him, and his 3 companions, Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego, were in the fiery furnace, and not even a hair of their head was singed. So this is a kind of period of time that Daniel lived through, that we possibly could also at that particular time keep in with the righteous, 2,300 days. So the church will be cleansed at the 2,300 days, and then Jesus will come sometime after that. And Daniel 12:13, we've talked a little bit about this. Blessed is he that waiteth and cometh to the 1,335 days. Now, this is very interesting, because the very next verse is, go thy way till the end be. It's the end of time. So the 1,000 is the millennium. This is changed into years. 1,000 is the millennium. 334 years of this is the time that Satan be loose, a little season. And then 1,335, that'll be the time of the eternal judgment. Everything will be finished, and the eternal judgment time will take place then. A season is 1,000 years. 1/3, a little season is 1/3 of 1,000 years, 334 years. And that's what that's showing here. So there's 1,290 days, and then 1,260 days. There's 2 3.5 year periods. The first half, the time times and a half, 360, 720, 180, totals to 1,260 days. Now, also a little later on, it talks about 42 months. Well, there's 30 days to a month, times 42 again is 1,260 days again. Both of those numbers come out the same. By the way, Enoch's city, who was taken up by God in heaven a long time ago, they will return. And the 10 lost tribes, they shall return. The Battle of Armageddon will take place sometime, probably during and near this end of these 7 years. So this is the first half of the tribulation. This is the second half of tribulation. It's a total of 7 years during that time. I have a bunch of scriptures all the way across here on that. I don't know if you can get that in. Anyhow, read the book of Daniel and it'll help you. Okay. The 7 years is right here just before the Lord returns, before the 1,000 years of millennium. Then when the millennium is finished, then there'll be 334 years of the little season. A season is 1,000 years. A little season is 1/3 of 1,000 years. And that's the end time. I kind of went over that here. No money in Zion. Okay, it's kind of what that one. We've done that kind of. Now, I mentioned to you what's going to take place during the 7 years. 2 3.5 year periods. Now, during the 7 years, the parable of 10 virgins, I mentioned that. The 5 wise will go into the marriage supper and be with Jesus. The 5 foolish had to sell and buy, and they weren't allowed to go into the marriage supper, and they were left out. He knew me because ye knew me not, Jesus said. Tithing is another important part. He that is tithed shall not be burned at his coming. So tithing is very important, and that's according to the church. The abomination of desolation will take place near the end of the 7 years. Now, if we've said this slow, I might have mentioned this before. Abomination. That's kind of interesting. Abomination of desolation, spoken of by Daniel the prophet. It's in Matthew. The 7 heads and 10 horns. The 7 heads were formed in 476 A.D. That is when Rome fell and the Dark Ages began. Then less than 100 years later, in 570, the 10 horns were formed. That's when the church, both the Aaronic and the Melchizedek priesthood went back to heaven, and the Church of Jesus Christ went into the wilderness for 1,260 years, or a times and a half a time. So those 10 years, now that took place in 570. Now, 570, you have the 1,260 years that times and a half, or 1,260 years, to 570, the church will come out of the wilderness in 1830. And that's what the scriptures tell us. So 1830 is when the woman was crowned with 12 stars, which is the 12 apostles, and that's what that period of time will come. The Church of the Latter-day Saints will come in 1830. And chapter 9, verse 27, and he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week, a baptismal covenant. In the midst of the week are 3.5 years. And people, multitudes and multitudes in the valley of decision. We've got to make a decision during that time, because it's going to be a troubled time, and the Lord can help us during that period of time. Okay. Now there's more for that 7 years. There's 144,000 servants. That's 12,000 from each of the 12 tribes. 12 times 12,000, 144. The apostate church of Babylon. She will be destroyed as part of she's the mother of abominations, spoken of in the scriptures. And there'll be a multitude of people with her, and that will take place. She'll be destroyed. The 2 witnesses in Jerusalem will be slain in the streets, and I mentioned that a few minutes ago. That will take place during that time. The mark of the beast, I talked about that. Now, have you ever taken the first 6 numbers of the Roman numerals? 1 is a 1, a V is 5, a 10, an X is 10, an L is 50, a C is 100, a D is 500. If you add those up, 666. Very interesting. Okay, let me move on. The word of wisdom. Word of wisdom is what we eat, things we don't do, things we do. It's mostly about our foods and stuff. And so read that in section 89 of the Doctrine and Covenants. Very important. Enoch city of Zion. Now Enoch city went up to heaven, and he will return when Jesus returns. And so the city of Zion will be established, and Enoch's and all of his cities that were resurrected will come back during that period of time when Jesus returns. The time of the end, that's the 7 years. That's what we're talking about. The time of the end. The Battle of Armageddon. That's going to take place near the end of the 6 years. Near the end of the 6 years. And confirm the covenant with many. The Valley of Decisions. Multitudes in the Valley of Decisions, mentioned twice. So we have to make our decision. We have to continue with God in prayer, in understanding, and He will direct you. He will direct you on whatever you need to do, whatever He has for you to do. My work that the Lord has helped me with for over 40 years was doing these charts. I have 125 of these charts, and the Lord has blessed me. They're all done by hand. 110,000 words, all done by hand. The Lord has helped me to. I couldn't put these together if I didn't understand them. So Lord help me with this. And so at this time, that's what I have, and I'll get some more later. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.